This Q's commentary is has me a little pissed off, because the one thing I hate about doing videos on my phone is motherfuckers be texting me and calling me and shit, and it stops the video from recording, which I don't understand why it just doesn't pause it. I don't understand why it fucking stops it. Anyways, this Q's commentary is about Jessie Lee Peterson and Jane Elliott. They got into a kind of a heated discussion because Jessie Lee Peterson was asking some serious questions that she really couldn't answer, and he was catching her in some things that I didn't even think about it, because I've heard of this, I've heard of Jane Elliott, and I've watched some of her stuff, and you know, I think a lot of her techniques or her classes or whatever you want to call them, workshops, I think a lot of them are a little bit outdated, because I think if you wanna talk about racism in modern terms, racism is a little bit more subtle, and racism is definitely, if it, you know, when it does apply, it's definitely not as detectable. The problem is this is just my kind of off the beaten path quick vent, is that so many people scream racism, has screamed racism, that it's hard to tell when actual racism is actually occurring. With that said, Jessie Lee Peterson is, by most black people's standard, a coon. He is an Uncle Tom and a sellout. That's what most black people consider him. Now, he talks and sounds like he's a slow southern backwoods boy, but he asks a lot of good, poignant questions that Jane Elliott really didn't have an answer for. One of them was which he said he grew up under Jim Crow. He said, why are all the statistics was so much better under Jim Crow than it is now, when we're technically not under Jim Crow? And she really didn't have a really good answer for it, other than to say that the top 1% of white folks are running media and this and that and yada yada yada. But she didn't really get to the crux of the situation, which is to say, why provide actual stats other than just saying it's media control, it's white folks' fault. Like, there has to be a level of accountability among black people to say that we shouldn't be aborting babies at the rate that we're doing. We shouldn't be having out of wedlock babies at the rate of which we're doing. And if we are going to have children, why not make sure that we are two people who actually want to be together, even if you don't necessarily believe in marriage? But why not pick someone who actually wants to be two? Why can't two people just pick one another who actually want to be together and not just have a baby because it's part of a reproductive function? Now, I can give my opinion on why I think those statistics are blown up now as compared to then. But one more quick point that he made, or he brought up, because she kept saying that white folks are controlling everything, they're creating the policies, they're creating the laws, yada yada yada. And he said, well, what do you think about all the places that are or have become traditionally ran by black folks? He listed a bunch of places like Gary, Indiana, Detroit, I believe he said Oakland, but I'm not 100% sure. But he listed a couple of cities. And she said, well, the white folks took all the jobs out. Now, she made a statement of saying about not judging people by their skin color, but it seemed like everything that she was saying that white folks was doing was kind of judging them by their skin color. I've never really thought about it that way, honestly. And again, I don't really follow Jessie Lee Peterson. I don't really watch his stuff, but the last couple videos I've seen where he's been involved in it, one thing I will give this man credit for, he is on a solid foundation when it comes to the things that he says and believes. He doesn't waver, and when confronted with disgruntled people, he doesn't back down. He stands up even stronger. And say what you want about the man, call him all kinds of names. I respect that in a man, where no matter how much heat or flack he's getting or taking, he stands up and doubles down because he firmly believes in what he says and what he thinks. Now, I'll give my quick opinion on why I think the statistics are so blown out of proportion. Now, to me, it's too easy to simply say, well, the white government created these laws and put certain things in, such as like child support, welfare, yada yada yada. And those are points that are facts. There are portions of the government that are white that put in these laws. You can't argue that. But one thing that I can say is the fundamental difference between Jessie Lee Peterson's time and, let's say, my time, from 82, I don't know, he said he's 66. I'm horrible at math, so I don't really, there'd probably be like some type of he was probably born like back in the 40s or something like that. So the difference between then and now, there wasn't a welfare state. I truly believe that it would have been, if even during Jim Crow, if there would have been welfare that would have backed up the irresponsibility of the woman, especially the black female, back then, I think that we would be in a way worse position now if instead of it starting in the 70s, it started in the 40s and 50s. I think we would be in a way worse condition as a people than we are now. And that's scary to think that this started in the 60s, 70s, and we're this bad now. Imagine how worse it would have been had it started 30 or 40 years prior to it when it did start. That's one thing that Jane didn't really touch on. And almost as kind of like an automatic out of office reply, quickly say, well, it's the white folks' fault. White people typically aren't present when two people are having sex and neither one of them are married and neither one of them are using protection. That's a lack of responsibility on both parties. But I feel it's even more of an irresponsibility on the woman because she has all these options, other options that is at her disposal outside of abortion that can prevent pregnancy if we want to go that route. So at the end of the day, you have to look at black people and say, we are just being irresponsible with our reproductive organs. We already know that we have a disadvantage to a degree because of some of what Jane is saying. But at the end of the day, we are accountable for our actions. It is the one thing that we can do or that we have control over that dictates how our futures can go. If I'm poor and I'm struggling and I have no job prospects, I have an option, two options, maybe more. I can steal stuff so that I can have things. I can sell drugs so I can have things. I can try to rob a bank so I can get some money. All these things have consequences to them. But all those things are options or choices at my fingertips that I could say, nah, I'm not going to do that. Now, I've been on the French fry, hot dog, ramen noodle diet because we didn't have no money like that. All the money was gone after bills. And we have very little money left to buy food. There were times where I contemplated doing illegal things to get extra money. But at the end of the day, I stopped myself because I said, I've seen too many of my friends and my peers ruin their life because they went out and they sold drugs. They went out and they murdered somebody, or got murdered, trying to murder somebody, or trying to rob somebody, whatever the case may be, or just trying to sell drugs. They got murdered. At the end of the day, we have to take accountability for our own actions, irregardless of what the government is doing, your local the federal government, local government, whatever it is. If they are implementing laws and stuff like that, that is oppressive. The last thing that we should be doing to each other is oppressing each other. Oh, he also brought up the whole black on black crime thing. Now, I always get a lot of flack for it because I am on the side to say, look, if you want to go around and you want to complain about how whites are killing whites, yada, 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 whites are not asking blacks to help them out in those problems. Yes, there's more white people than black, and they're probably at the same percentage rate of killing each other. But there's less of us, but we're killing each other at a higher percent. At what point do we stop and say, okay, look, there's less of us than there are white people, but yet we're killing each other at the same 80% clip. I think it's 80, 81, or it's somewhere in the 80% range of we killing each other. If we want to sit here and pretend that black lives do matter, then killing another black life should be the last thing that we do. You would think. That's just kind of my this is my vent portion of the video. But my takeaway from the video is, unfortunately, though I respect a lot of what Jane does, I think it was a little bit cowardice of her to hang up on the show when you say that you believe what you teach is right and is helping people. Well, if you firmly believe that what you're doing is helping people, the last thing you should ever do is, when you're presented with someone who is confronting your beliefs, running away from them, because that sends a dangerous sign. And then near the end of the video, if you watch the whole thing, it's like a 31-minute video, but the interview was only like 20 minutes, 21 minutes. He's gloating in the fact that he made her run off the show. Now, maybe she doesn't care about that, but it's going to be hard to make people believe in what you're doing when you run off the stage once the bright lights are focused on a methodology that you say is proven. You've changed people's lives with this technique that you ran off a show when confronted on why you did it. And one last thing he presented too. I know I keep saying one last thing, but he talked about the trauma that she caused those children when she said she did it once Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. She did the whole brown eye, blue eye thing. And I didn't never thought of it that way. A bunch of third graders, and he said traumatized, and I would have to agree. At that age, you're not thinking about things that are going on in the world. And it's almost like, had she done this with high school students, now that I sit back and I think on it, I'm kind of like, had she done this with high school students, I think it would have made more sense. But the fact that she was doing this to 8 and 9-year-olds, I get it, but their minds aren't there yet. And you can't put adult burdens on a child's mind, because a child's mind it runs all the time. And me as a father, I'm guilty of that. And I have a 4-year-old. And there's times where my 4-year-old, he'll start asking me questions, and I'm like kind of thinking to myself, like, how do you, like, first of all, why are you concerned with this? Like, why are you bringing this up? You know? And I think there's some truth to what he's saying, and there's some truth to what she's saying. But at the end of the day, she ran off the stage and when put to the fire. So I don't know. Let me know what y'all think. Watch the video. I'll definitely put the link to the video in the description box. Give me your opinion on it. And maybe you don't see it how I see it. But that's my commentary on this, and I'll catch you later.